absolutely delighted today to introduce our speaker, Rutgers Board of Governors Distinguished Service Professor, Dr. Gloria Bonilla Santiago, who teaches in the Graduate Program of Public Policy and Administration at Rutgers University, Camden, where she also directs the Community Leadership Center. She is a leading scholar with an extraordinary record of service to the local community. Professor Bonilla Santiago has substantial expertise in a variety of fields, including public policy, community development, education, and migration. Renowned for her teaching in the classroom, she is a recipient of the Warren I. Sussman Award for Excellence in Teaching, the highest recognition given to teachers of Rutgers faculty by the president of the university. One of Professor Bonilla Santiago's many talents is her capacity to translate sophisticated research into practice, and many of you are aware of her leading the efforts to create the LEAP Academy in 1997. Originating as a small charter school housed in modular classrooms, the LEAP Academy is now a comprehensive K-12 school with a full college preparatory curriculum and a focus on STEM. It is distinguished by its 100% graduation and college placement rates. In 2004, 2 LEAP graduates were named Gates New Millennium Scholars, an honor given to 1,000 students nationwide. In recognition of her extraordinary accomplishments, Professor Bonilla Santiago was herself awarded the L'Oreal Paris Women of Worth Award, a national recognition that honors 10 women for their exemplary and transcending services to communities. This is just one of her many accolades. She is the author of numerous articles and also 3 books, Organizing Puerto Rican Migrant Farm Workers, Breaking Ground and Barriers, Hispanic Women Developing Effective Leadership, and most recently, The Miracle on Cooper Street, Lessons from an Inner City, that came out in 2014 and is doing very well. Described by her colleagues as a mover and a shaker and an unstoppable, dynamic individual, she has dedicated her life to increasing educational opportunities for members of impoverished and under-resourced communities. She has said that, quote, "There is nothing more powerful than to tell parents who have no money that you're going to do everything possible so their child goes to college. That helps break the cycle of poverty," end quote. We are thrilled to welcome her as part of our distinguished lecture series. Her talk tonight is entitled The Miracle on Cooper Street, a case study of community transformation and engaged scholarship. Please join me in welcoming Professor Bonilla Santiago.
So thank you so much. That was such a long introduction, and I try to cut it back, but I think, having to spend 30 years at Rutgers, your beta keeps growing. But it's so good to be here because I have so many friends here. And if I was here, oh my God, we would be doing so much. I was just saying that I'm going to be looking at the president. I think I'm going to be meeting with him in 2 weeks. And I'm going to talk to him about the fact that I got here. This is a beautiful building, and it was freezing, and we're having problems with heating. I said, I want the women's building to have heat. We have to make sure that we treat our women equitably. So I'm going to make a joke out of it, but I'm going to let him know. So, and it's so good to be here. I'm just so happy to see the ex-governor Florio to come here because he is such a good friend, and he's part of this dream and this work that I built and developed in the 1990s. Actually, I started in 1990 with an idea that I had about public schools, and I basically got a research grant to do a study on issues of education. And at that point, the governor was running for, actually he had already run and won, and he had put me in a transition team. And I think he put me in a transition team because, I knew a lot about community and I was doing a lot of issues on education. And so I remember that he asked me to co-chair the Management Audit Commission. Remember that? And that Management Audit Commission was sort of responsible for cleaning government. But I always had an agenda in my head that if I had the ear and the eye on the governor, I would talk to him about education. And he invited me through his chief of staff to a meeting that I brought with me my provost. That was Provost Walter Gordon. And Gloria Golden was always afraid of getting out of his office. I mean, this is a very tall white guy who will he says, we're going where, Gloria? I said, we're going to Trenton to meet with the governor. And he said, okay, this is really important, Gloria. You better have your agenda ready. Tell me what we're asking for. I said, well, we're just going to talk about an idea that I have about education. And so, the governor probably had no idea, but he had heard about me. But his chief of staff, Rick Wright, remember Rick Wright, very good friend of the governor, he was so enthusiastic about my idea about how do we build schools in New Jersey. And that will be different, and there will be community schools. I didn't want traditional schools. So I went to see the governor, and he took us into a meeting, and literally he had already about my idea. He said, he says, how much money do you need, Gloria? And I got to say, Governor, I made it up. I said, $1.5 million. And he said, let's do it. Let's go forward. So my provost passed me a note, my chancellor, saying you should have asked for $5 million, Gloria. And, that we started with $1.5 million that we got through the Delaware River Port Authority to do this research project that will be, I said 3 years because I didn't know how to spend 1.5, okay, in 1 year. So I said 3 years because that's how I think about things. Ideas are great, but you got to think about 3 years because it takes more than a year to actually evolve them. So we engaged in a research project with focus groups and really doing a feasibility study as to whether or not we could do this in Camden, Newark, or Trenton. And, we spent 3 years doing the research. One of the things that I did while I was doing this research was I took a trip to 3 states. Minnesota, because Minnesota was the state that came up with this idea of what charter schools are. And charter schools was really an agreement that you make between a school district and a university, back then in Minnesota, for developing an idea. Right? It was an agreement. So an agreement to develop a school. So they had these charter schools there, and I went to visit, and I was not so impressed. Then I went to the second state that had legislation on charter schools, and that was Michigan. Very impressive, a partnership with the university. And I looked at the legislation, and I came back very excited. And I went to visit some of the senators from my district, who happened to, one of them was Senator Wynn Bryan, who said to me, Gloria, I'm going to send you to Cooper Hospital because there's no way we're going to do this. So he said, maybe you can speak with the Republicans. So I went to see Jack Ewing. A Republican in the Education Committee, was very active. And then I talked to some Democrats here in Doria, Assemblyman Doria. They said, we'll sponsor the bill. And so that was sort of like in 1993. And so the governor is coming for re-election. We know we're moving, and we're all working for the governor. But guess what? Christie also was running. And, the governor lost the election. Christie actually won. So I was very depressed. I said, oh, my God, we're going to lose all the efforts. But, I don't give up. So Jack Ewing said, Gloria, we have a new governor. He was Republican. So he said, I will introduce you to the governor. So I went to see our governor, Christie Whitman. And we have nothing in common. Mind you that I come from a migrant farm worker child. I come from poverty. I happen to have gone to college on EOF 100%, never had a debt in my life, all in scholarships, done really well. So I'm very committed to EOF. And so, I have a PhD, very well educated, but probably we have that in common. But she cared about kids, and I share the fact that I care about kids. And she said to me, Dr. Santiago, I'm pushing vouchers on the issue of education. So what do you think? And I said, that will never happen. I said, I'm for charter schools, which are public schools, and I want to support them. But I got to tell you that I don't believe that you will get anywhere with that. And she says, well, I know that there's a bill. Can you deliver the votes? And by then, I have organized 500 parents to this idea. And she says, can you deliver? And I absolutely say yes. Okay? Even if you don't know, you say yes. Okay? So I said yes, and of course I had the parents. So I went back and I began to work real fast and organizing my parents. The bill went through the Senate. We got a bill passed in 1996. Actually, at the end of 96, beginning of 97, she signs the bill in that January. And I'm supposed to get the first charter school. So what you see here in this picture is probably, and what I'm going to talk about is about this work. But I needed to put that little history in front of you so that you see that I started in the 1990s with this idea. I didn't have tenure. I came to Rutgers as an assistant professor doing all these great ideas that I had in my head. I wanted to really make a difference, and I really was committed to social justice. So I had an agenda in my head about what I wanted to do. It was not just about writing articles and getting tenure, but in permanency in a university and staying 30 years at Rutgers. I was going to stay very few years, maybe, and then move on. But my idea was that I wanted to do something really big and different. And so I had to do the research, and I wanted to be an applied scholar. I knew that I wasn't going to be a traditional scholar writing books and papers that nobody cared about. I wanted to write about the real people that I knew about, Black and Latino and communities. And I was very interested in community development. As a sociologist, I wasn't interested in just solving problems, right, and putting stamps on problems. I wanted to really get to the reason of problems, right? That's what sociologists do. We want to understand causes. We don't just want to do symptoms, right? So, and I wanted to also understand policy, and I didn't want politics. I didn't want to go, everybody says, if you run for office, you will win. Well, I really did not want to run for office, and I didn't want anyone to define me because of my activism to say, well, she has a political career. I was always, and if you read my book, there's a chapter where we talk about this, and actually the governor is quoted in there where he says, you know, you chose the policy way, Gloria, and you know, and nothing wrong with choosing the political way because you have more power, you can make policy happen faster. But I wanted to use the policy way because I knew and understood how to pass a bill. I mean, I have learned that from an internship that I took with Winona Lippman. Winona Lippman was one of the most powerful senators in our state of New Jersey, one of the most educated Black women that I ever met, and I was her intern. So I learned so much from her about the public policy process. Actually, everything I know to this day, I learned with Winona Lippman in action. So research in action is critical. You always want to connect both, right? The action and the research. So research in action is really what my work is about. And so I want to share with you the story about LEAP because I started in 1990s when Camden City in the 1930s and 40s was a wonderful city. I mean, it had the best. It was an industrial city with the most, you know, it had Campbell's soup. It had, you know, major industry, right, in there. So it had, you know, wealth. And so it wasn't until the 1960s that things started going bad, right? The industries are moving out. A lot of Black and Latino families are staying in Camden. A lot of poor people are migrant workers are migrating from all South Jersey into the city. There was no place to go. Philadelphia was overpopulated already. So as Camden is emerging into this new city, right, that is transforming itself by minorities, a lot of the white flight goes out because jobs leave. You know, you have Del Monte and you have Campbell's Soup. All the industries actually leave Camden. And so it's not in the 1970s, early 1970s, there's a major fire. You already have a lot of poverty. And I come to Camden in the 1970s as a graduate student to do an internship. And so what you see here is Cooper Street, literally, right? And so I come there as a graduate student, and that's where I got my interest when I got my PhD, to come back to the city, because I wanted a small city of about 89,000 people back then. Today is 75,000 people living in the city that will be small enough for me to do a major innovation like the one that I did, right? Getting to pass a law that would allow me to build this wonderful school district, because the charters are school districts. And charters, you know, the way that the charter school law was created, it was created as a law that reports directly to the Department of Education. And I literally helped draft that bill, you see? Not only did I knew the policy process, but I participated in providing the research to the Office of Legislative Services so they could write the bill and they could write what I wanted. So one thing I learned about advocacy and about public policy is that anybody can make public policy if you understand the process, right? And if you really have good writing skills and you're smart enough and you can really stay focused on what you want, you can get anything passed in the legislature. You just got to learn how to do the advocacy work. And so literally it took me, less than a year to get a law passed, right? And I'm not as smart as some of these politicians, like they say. I have to say that Mr. Nokros in Camden passed a bill in a week, 3 days, with money. So people who know how to do this will do it faster. It just took me a year. But for some people, it takes them 9 years to pass a law to get something done. So it depends on how good you know how to use the system. So the beauty about that law is that it allowed me to open a school. That's really what that charter school law says, that we can open, the Department of Education can provide the authority now to give to anybody who can write a good proposal, a good education proposal, with a good curriculum program, with a good leadership team to run a school. So literally, I never ran a school. I don't come for traditional public schools, right? I had a sociologist, I had in a university. I had never done anything else. I come from advocacy. I knew, because my father was an organizer. He worked with Cesar Chavez. I grew up in the movement. So I knew that all my life was about social justice, equity, and I knew about that world, and I was well educated, but I never worked as running a school. So I knew that this was something I was going to do, and I was going to give it to the community, and I was going to give it to the parents to manage and hire a team to do it. So I did something really good. I set up a good structure, I hired a good team, and I said I will engage the university in this process. When the bill came up when the governor signed the law, I came back to Rutgers, and I said to President Lawrence, remember President Lawrence? Oh my God, I said, Mr. Lawrence, I really want to do this. And he says, oh, Gloria, this is great. You got $5 million. We love you. Your research is impeccable. Everybody, CNN, everybody's talking about you. And I said, yeah, but I want to open a school. And he said to me, I don't think we can do that, Gloria. We're going to have to go in front of the Board of Governors because we're not in the business of secondary schools. I was devastated. They were not going to let me file for a charter. And so they sent the provost to give me the news. And guess what? I called the governor. I said, they're not going to let me file. I guess, you cannot use me as a model because they were going to use my project as a model. And she said to me, oh, Dr. Santiago, don't worry. I'm the governor. We fund the university. Let me call the president. I was petrified because my husband back then worked for the president's office. And he was already calling and threatened me that I needed to stop because he was going to get fired, he said. He was so afraid of everything. I said, don't worry. They fire us. We'll just go and work at the school and we'll go public, right? But I knew the university wasn't that crazy. So the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call from Fran Lawrence. Gloria, who told you we were not going to let you file? You got the governor calling me. God damn it, Gloria. He says, we need you to come to a meeting with the Board of Governors leadership at 10 o'clock today if you really want your project. So I drove to New Brunswick singing, But in the way, I called a good friend, attorney of mine that I have, and I said, could you please join me at this meeting? Because I don't represent the parents. There's 500 parents that I need them to be represented. I'm a member of the university community, and they have attorneys to support me in this project, but the parents don't. And I knew that at that meeting, there will be a compromise. So they asked me to speak to the Board of Governors for 5 minutes, and they said, you only have 5 minutes. Having to say there was only one woman in the room, no people of color. And I said, oh my God, they're going to kill me. And they were all upset because I had called the governor. And I said, well, they said one question. They said, why is this so important to you that you had to call the governor? I said, let me tell you why. And why should we be doing this? I said, I will answer the latter. I said, we should be doing this because Rutgers University has less than 1% of minority kids that look like me right now. And let me tell you, and I'm the only faculty member in this campus in Camden, and you don't have anybody else. So then this is the state university with all the money that we have. How is it that we don't have kids that look like my kids? So this is in your interest. I'm going to build a pipeline, and they're all going to come into Rutgers. That's it. I didn't answer why I went to the governor. And there's one person, one woman in the room, Ann Thomas. She gets up and she goes, bravo! Right on, Gloria. This is exactly what we needed to hear. I've been telling you all that we need to increase minority enrollment, and this is the way to do it. They asked me to go out. 5 minutes, they called me. They said, we're going to do it this, Dr. Santiago. But we need you to work with the Vice President Seneca. And that was the beginning of that discussion. So, of course, they were upset that I brought an attorney to the meeting. But the reason I brought that attorney was because I wanted as we drove an agreement, which we did, I wanted those parents to be representative because I didn't want them to go back and say later on that we couldn't do it. That this was a major commitment that the university was making. Now, they asked me to put together a plan in less than a week to put together a budget, a feasibility study. Can you imagine? For where am I going to get the money to buy this building, which I didn't even have a building. They had just approved me, right, to get the charter. And I said to myself, they're setting me up for failure. So on my way back, I called Rich Wright, the governor's friend, and I said, do you know how to put a budget together and a feasibility plan? Because I don't know what the hell they're talking about. They said, oh, yes, and we'll help you, Gloria. We'll put some people together. And we put that plan together. And let me tell you, the Delaware Bay Port Authority gave me land in which I could open that school. And I opened in trailers, and then in less than 6 months, they bought a building, and we were able to fix it. And I'll show you that. So this case study that I'm talking to you about had that introduction, right, that I had to tell you, because without that introduction, you're not going to be able to really understand this work. But I was standing for quality education. Notice that my vision was about quality schools. It was about visionary leadership. And I define leadership this way, okay? You have to have a vision, right? Leadership equals having a vision. And my vision was those children and building an enterprise for them. It was clear in my head that it was about the kids. You also have to be able to have, you have to be able to communicate a vision. If I didn't communicate that vision to the parents, okay, so leadership equals leadership equals vision plus communication, right? I had to communicate that vision to the parents, to the constituency, to the university, to the politicians. Everybody had to be around me. And 3, you have to empower those parents in that community to do this. So leadership is vision, communication, plus empowerment. Without allowing those parents to really felt that power, that they could do this, that they could be part of a movement, right? This would have never happened. Now, I could have done all of that, right? And that leadership definition will be faulty. The last thing is action. So leadership is, what is leadership? I just gave it to you. Vision, communication, empowerment, plus action. Oh, that's my definition of visionary leadership. You have to be able to take action. If you don't, people in Camden for a long time will promise and promise and promise. So everybody was very negative. Parents were angry, and still communities are like that because they get to be told that something is going to happen. It never happens. So people become very pessimistic. So you know that when you deliver something like this for those parents, you know you have them for life. You know they're going to keep coming and they're going to keep bringing their children. So I had to engage that community in ways that they felt empowered. In community development, what we learn is that engagement. Notice that I'm not using the word involvement. Big difference in between engaging and involving. I was engaging parents in the process. It was reciprocity. I was learning from them. I was learning so much from them, and they were learning from me and others that we were working with. Engaging the students. I have 150 students engaged in this project. Back then, we had about 50 students doing research. I put all my undergraduates and graduate students to work on this project. But what they learned out of that experience, they were never the same people again. They were eating in the families' homes. Families were coming into Rutgers Camden for the first time. They had never been in the college center. You know what that is? And we're in the community. We're like in North Camden. And the parents had never been in the college center for an event. I ran a Parents Institute for parents. And in 6 months, I graduated them, and I put them all in cap and gowns. And then I invited the provost to speak to them and to give them the certificates. And that was the first time that I got that community engaged. They felt important. So giving people power means giving them dignity and respect and treating them at a level where they feel good. And that was so important. That was so important. And I learned a lot from them because I was taught by the research, which informed my thinking, that poor people, and we're going to talk about poverty, that poor people and these poor parents don't care about their kids, right? Every sociological study I read and welfare study I read was punitive. It said that these parents got too many problems to worry about the kids. Oh boy, how wrong were they? what I learned, the most fundamental lesson out of that experience, at that beginning of this project, was that the parents love their kids, that they don't have time to take them to school, that they don't have sometimes the time because they're struggling and they're doing everything possible to survive. But at the end of the day, they love their kids. They love them so much sometimes that they have to give them away. Okay? I met a drug addict who had her babies, and she gave them to the hospital and said, you take care of them. And she had no place to go. Now, those babies are with me, and one of them is in Cornell, and another one is in Princeton today, because we got good parents to adopt them. Can you imagine? An incredible story about community engagement, right? And, of course, you know, the university, I could have never done this. With all the challenges that Rutgers gave me at the very beginning, you know, I love Rutgers. I'm a Rutgers girl, because I graduated from Rutgers. I got my master's from Rutgers, and so, of course, I went some places for my PhD, but the beauty of the university and a partnership like this was that the students were learning. I was bringing all the knowledge back into the university, into the classroom. I was bringing my colleagues to do research projects, and you'll see how many faculty I have involved. I want to give you a taste of what this looks like so that we can continue with this, because this video will tell you everything you want to know about this project.
This is the 2014 high school graduation ceremony for Leap Academy. The school is located in Camden, New Jersey, which is the poorest small city in America.
Growing up in Camden, my family was so poor I thought it was normal. I had a single mother. She had 3 kids. My father was a homeless drug addict before I could even walk and talk. I wasn't supposed to make it out. I wasn't supposed to graduate high school. I wasn't supposed to go to college.
Leap stands out among Camden's public schools, which are among the worst in the nation. In 2014, only 61% of Camden high school students graduated on time. At Leap, the graduation rate was 98%, and every student who made it through also got into college.
I figured out at a very young age that I would strive to be a wife and a mother and not a baby mama. I would have a career and not a job, and I would own a house next to actual neighbors and not rent a row home next to an abandoned building.
The difference is that Leap is a charter school, which among other things means that Gloria Bonilla Santiago, the school's larger-than-life founder and chairman, controls nearly every aspect of the school's operations, in a way that a public school principal never could. And because it's a charter, Leap only survives because parents make the choice to send their kids here.
Seniors, move your tassels from left to right. Congratulations!
In Camden, this is the worst we have to offer as a society, not in terms of the people, but in terms of the conditions. At the same time, we have some amazing schools that are growing out of the rocks there and doing the right thing for kids.
The most powerful tool that the city has is families. Even if the kids were being raised by brothers and sisters and grandmoms and, you know, extended family systems, everybody loved the children. You know, they loved the kids, and I was impacted by that. There was so much despair, at least these kids, you know, felt loved by their families. And they really became my army.
In the early 90s, Gloria Bonilla Santiago hatched a plan to create an alternative option for families, desperate to avoid sending their kids to Camden's traditional public schools.
I signed up 500 parents to an idea.
She got deeply involved in building political support for the state's first charter school authorization bill.
When things got difficult, Who did I call? The parents. Here I come for the legislature. Every time that the bill came up in committee, there I was with buses of parents.
In 1996, the charter school bill passed, and LEAP became one of the first to open in New Jersey, located in trailers on a vacant lot on the Camden waterfront.
It was about bringing leadership. Leadership that have the guts to say what matters here is the children, and we're going to create a school system that is going to work, and we're going to hold teachers accountable. We're going to tell the unions, hell no, you're not going to run our schools.
Today, LEAP occupies 5 modern buildings in downtown Camden, offering its 1,500 students a cradle-till-college education.
2 to the third, and then 2 to the third.
Not only did every kid get into college last year, some are attending the top schools.
I get only 70% of the per pupil cost that Camden gets. So I get $15,000 per child, Camden gets $28,000. Well, with that money, I get to pay mortgages, I get to pay books, I get to pay teachers with wonderful salaries.
D to the second square.
It's not just about having things, but also about feeling things, feeling important, feeling that you can work to get all these things that everybody else has.
All these people want to solve poverty before you solve schooling. Schools are institutions we control, and that's what I feel like we need to be doubling down on there every day, every day.
Don't let anybody ever tell you what your life is supposed to be like. Not a teacher, not your friends, not your family members. There's so many things that are blocking you from getting to where you want to be. But hard work and education will break through any wall. It'll bust through any glass ceiling. There's absolutely nothing that can stop you if you invest in yourself. That's my time.
Okay. This is a wonderful video. Yeah. If you can see the second part, it's about more about Camden, less about us. Let's close it. So,
Keep going.
yeah, so I wanted to make sure that you got a feeling for what it does it feel like, right? What does this work feel like? It's important that, and Kari was selected. Kari was my intern. He was my student in undergraduate. He was my student in the graduate program of public policy. He followed me and he said, Dr. Santiago, I want to learn from you. And then I hire him as an intern, and from there I hire him to come work and develop my college access. I trained him. He's been with me for about 10 years. He has developed the best college access office you can imagine. He's responsible for those 100% college placement. The most important powerful thing about him is that I didn't know that Kari came from all of that. When the children selected him as the keynote speaker for graduation, I was thrilled. But when he started talking, let me tell you, that has touched so many lives. That speech is just incredible because it tells you why he has spent 10 years with me in this work. He's one of those kids. Can you imagine? He was one of those kids that made it, who knows why. And somehow he has given back. And so let me give you some context. We talked a little bit about LEAP, right? That public charter schools drive neighborhood revitalization, that they emerge from an urban education agenda. They are community development focused. And charter schools are public schools. It's a big misdemeanor out there. For some reason, we don't think that charter schools are public schools. They are. They just happen to be innovative schools, right? They still report to the Department of Education. We are held accountable probably more than anybody else. Because every 5 years, we have to go through a renewal process. Otherwise, they close you down. I wish they did that for all the schools that are in need of improvement. Today, we are a Tier 1 school. In New Jersey, they classified you Tier 1 as the best schools with the highest test scores. We are there, okay? We were never there, but we're there. The only one in the whole city of Camden. Now, Tier 2 are schools that are struggling, and Tier 3 is schools that are in need of improvement. All Camden schools are still in need of improvement, okay? And that to me is devastating today that I cannot open more. So public schools foster stronger relationships with community by decentralizing operation. What does that mean? That means that we have a board of education, and then you don't have a superintendent office. The schools in themselves, they have one director of curriculum instruction, one in finance, and one in operations. The rest are principals, and then you run the district. Isn't that great? You don't need 200 people in the office of a superintendent to run a district. That's what decentralization means, okay? You can do this with less money, okay? Remember what I said? I get really now 15, Camden gets 27, it went down a little bit. So, and the schools really have the ability to foster these relationships between communities by what I call creating this economic security, and schools that partner with anchor institutions like Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers has an incredible responsibility as a state university to be engaged in these communities. Rutgers have benefit today. Let me tell you, I send every year, okay, without no doubt, 30 to 40 students to Rutgers University every year. So they are benefiting. Remember the pipeline that I talked to you about back then in the 90s? Now Rutgers is loving it, right? And then I set up an endowment that pays for the kids. So the kids don't have to pay a penny, and Rutgers also engages in that endowment. So I fundraise. We have $2 million endowment set up on behalf of my husband, because I forgot to tell you, in the middle of all this, in the middle of this struggle of fighting for the charter school, as I'm really engaging in my first year now that we're going to open the charter school, my husband is in a car accident in the way to New Brunswick to work, and I lost my husband. And when I lost my husband, I learned that tragic drives everything in life. And I could have given up. I could have said, I'm not doing this. Let me go back and get out of this depression and go through grief. But I said, you know what? I need to do this work. I need to get better. And by the time I get better, I know that we're moving something big here. And so in any ways, my husband's death liberated me to really commit myself to this work, because I was preparing myself to be a president of a college or a chancellor. That's what I was going to do. I was going to build this school and give it to the community and move on and go to Harvard, go to Yale, become, I want better and better. I'm very ambitious. But when he died, he gave me the freedom to look deeper into what was the most important thing in life. And I knew that it was those kids. That's why I never left. So that's just as much as I'm going to talk about that, because I'm going to start crying in a minute. Every time I talk about this, get a little emotional. But so these schools that I talk about connect youth to adult conventional norms and adapt them into a mainstream society in terms of these economic structures that we're talking about, right? Because these kids now are going to graduate. You can see these are all the students that are in the scholarship fund and the Alfredo Santiago fund. You can see my chancellor there with me. So we celebrate them every time that we have a chance. Rutgers has wonderful events where we celebrate the kids with the Alfredo Santiago Endowment Fund. So here's what we stand for. We stand for opportunities for children and families in Camden. We use a collaborative design here and an integration of education with health and human services. I have a health, human service, and wellness clinic at the school. I have a professional development center, a parent center, college access, community development effort that is really transforming the whole Cooper Street, as you're going to see. These are some of the historical milestones. You can see the dream about to come true as the school opens up. My first building, you see this baby sitting there with me, I call a press conference. People say, how do you got that historical building, Dr. Santiago? You had no money. I did. Let me tell you what I did. Remember what I said, you just have to say it? Well, I call a press conference because the Camden Diocese owned that building, and they refused to sell me the building. And I needed a building for my school. So I got the press conference. I learned how to use the press really well, and I said, this is going to be my future home for the charter school. I have $100,000 for the school, and the RPA has said to me that I could say that. I said, but make sure you give it to me. So I said, we have $100,000. We want to buy the building. And he refuses to do that. It was in the paper the next morning. He called me. He says, you have that $100,000? I didn't have it, but I already heard that somebody said was going to give it to me. And that's called social capital. I learned to build social capital on other people's money. When you have people around you that have money, that means you have social capital, right? The DRP was very powerful. They have a lot of money to spend. And they said to me, Dr. Santiago, we'll buy the building and we'll fix it for you if you can get it. Well, I went back and I got it for $100,000. So the minute he says that, I called the attorney, I called the RPA, I called Rick. I said, you guys have to come through now. I got him to say yes. And we got the building for $100,000. And what was better was they got an opportunity to work with me in a partnership that today they are part of the board, okay? So I'm telling you these stories because I'm throwing lessons at you. You have to be savvy. You have to be committed. And you have, and again, in community development, we define what social capital is. And I didn't know that that was social capital until I really studied it, quite frankly. But that's really what social capital is. It's building what capacity of resources that of people that you have around. That's really the definition of social capital, right? Human capital. You have a lot of people that are human, that have talent. Rutgers was packed with intellectual capital. Okay, so I brought intellectual capital, human capital, social capital together. I had no money. Okay, but when you bring that together, you are very resourceful and you can make things happen. So we talked about doing a stakeholders analysis, engaging them. Notice all the people that are involved, right? The university, the parents, the community, the government sector, the private, and you can see who in each of these categories was engaged, particularly at Rutgers, the faculty and staff, students, the board of governors, the university partners. Everybody was engaged in this project from the very beginning. And it wasn't that we did it intentionally, it was just that we needed to get approvals, right? And so we had to engage these stakeholders. And the first day that I opened the school, I invited the board of governors. They had never walked in the city of Camden in the street. They'd just drive to the university and they go in the building. And, these are very important people. They don't have time to be walking in Camden. But there they are with a little bag called LEAP and codes, me walking them in a trailer, engaging them in what I call was an educational process. Right? You got to really build capacity with the stakeholders, and that was really important. So what are our values? Remember the little baby that I told you that was left in the hospital? Okay? Well, that woman kept coming back. I have 2 kids that now are going into college, but she kept coming back. The system never helped that lady. This is the last baby she had. Isn't that incredible? Her name is Tatiana. I had her when she was 2 days old. The minute she was born, they called us. And they said, you have another parent for this family. I said, absolutely. I didn't have anyone, but I called the parents, and one of them stepped up. And she adopted her until we were able to get Tatiana to be adopted legally by this family. And so Tatiana, of course, I am the madrina. You know what a madrina means? The lady told me that she will only do it if I become the madrina and if I could have her in the early learning academy school, because I have a school for babies, that she will do this. But she says she's 70 years old. And she says, we need support for this baby. If I'm going to do this, I need to know that this baby is going to be taken care of. So I committed myself in paper that I will be her madrina. She calls me Madina. Okay? And someday she called me Mama, Mommy. She has the whole class in that cohort calling me Madina. So when I walk around, even with guests with money, Madina, it's incredible. So I have her here for a story because we're keeping all the babies that have been born in the last 4 years in a cohort that we're doing a longitudinal study and looking at their behavior. She's in kindergarten today. She can read, she can write, she knows all her alphabet. She's been with us in school because we have a curriculum for the 0 to 3 that is done by Horizons. It's called Tipping Point. And these babies are going to school. So I'll show you that building and that program. That all is sponsored by a funder from the Knight Foundation, who gave me $7 million for that building. But you can see the things that we stand for. Why are we successful? It's not that this is just a miracle. We call it a miracle because the parent kept calling it a miracle because no one believed in the children. Everyone that came to see us at the beginning said, this is how you got to be out of your mind. These kids will never make it. These kids have been left behind for so many years. No one believed that they will make it. So we said this is a miracle because they all made it, right? So it's no longer a miracle. They've really proven that this can be done. So what stands out for me here is that's really important here is that we're a family, that we're accountable, that we are transparent, that we are constantly looking at what's important, student achievement, right? So you can see that these values are really important. There are 4 core elements of our work, right? The accountability for people, time, money, and programs. What does that mean? How you schedule the day in that school is critical, right? How you schedule, and the people coming in on time, making sure that they're not clocking. This is not a factory mentality, teacher mentality, that most teachers are in the clocking business because they still not treated as professionals. So, they still thinking that way, that we can come in. We have to kill all of that. We have to say, if you want to work at LEAP, it's about whatever it takes. You got to be here, and we have to be committed, and you have to be on time, right? And using the money, remember, 75% of per people's costs, $15 million a year versus 27, right? I was telling the governor that it wasn't the money. I learned the biggest lesson. You've already said, Dr. Santiago, you have less money, you're never going to do it. Listen, you're going to see all I've done with that $15 million. It's all about accountability. It never was about the money. Never. It was about the accountability. It's about the leadership. It's about changing conditions. It is about the kinds of programs that you develop for these kids, right? The pipeline for college access for all, from pre-K to 16. Notice I'm not thinking K-12. I'm thinking babies all the way to college, because the biggest liberation for poor kids is education. If you educate a child and you're going to break that cycle of the family. How many of you are first-year generation college here? First one to go to college in your family. Well, I am. My kids are all, to this day, all first one to go to college. Could you imagine? And that makes a big difference. The minute you go, guess what? Everybody else is going to go, right? And so you begin to break cycle of poverty when you get a job. That's what I tell my kids now. They come back, Dr. Santiago, what a job, but when they work, I leave. It's fine, get a master's. You have to be highly qualified. You have to have credentials to teach hair. It doesn't happen just like that. And guess what? Don't talk to me about being poor anymore. The poverty ended when you went to college and you get a degree, because now you're educated. Now you have credentials. Now you have knowledge and content, and that has liberated you to do anything you want, right? And so you can see it in the children, the sense of pride and the sense of identity, but also, you can see the stamina of that strength of what it takes to be about excellence, right? So this pipeline has been created. Remember, I talked about this, accountability for people, time, money, and programs. We are held accountable by the Department of Education for every dollar that they give us. And for every time, I always remind everybody about that. Anybody who is working for me, they know that always they should be available, because they are on working time, right? They should know that they're being accountable for every minute of their time. And also the programs. So instruction. Those programs are critical. You see here, this picture is critical because this is all the Rutgers people that I have involved in the project. These are not children from LEAP. These are all the students from Rutgers that are involved in the project right now, and we graduate them. Every semester we have a big event. You can see the deans and the chancellors in the front. I'm sorry, let me go back. Teacher development and support is the third thing that we do. A professional development program for teachers. Parental engagement program. Remember the two-way reciprocity that I talked to you about. These are the leaders of the parent program. They meet with me at least once a month. They're constantly, now we're opening a parent university with Rowan University to send for adult learning, because these parents have gotten everything else that they want. They're saying, we need a degree, right? I got all the cleaning people, all my teacher aides, all my library people, all the maintenance department. We form our own co-ops. We're hiring our own people. And who are we hiring? All my kitchen ladies are parents from the community. All my security guards that are working for Rutgers are all parents. So we created jobs. I said to all my partners, you got to provide training and you got to give opportunities to our parents. So these people now, they know that, you know what, I got a job. And you should see what happens when a parent, a working parent or a mother gets a job. When you get a child from LEAP Academy who's in 8th grade and comes see me and says, Dr. Santiago, my father is great. He can build houses. He can do cement work. He does everything in this community. He doesn't have the license. He needs a job, or we're going to lose our house. Okay? And I said, okay, who do I call to try to get this parent work right away so he doesn't lose his house? That parent got his license, and guess what? Now he works for us as one of the maintenance. He got all his licenses, and because we gave him a job when he was almost this way from homelessness, he will never forget that. He have brought me the best people you can think. These are the parents who are vigilant, because Camden is a very high crime city, as you know. I mean, it's not that Camden is not about crime. There is crime every day. Every day in my school, a child loses somebody, a relative or an uncle, somebody got shot. So you know the amount of support you have to have in a school like that for grief. Because their children start crying, they're coming late, everybody's in the morning, because you know how it is. It's just a whole set of mornings. So you got to engage these families in a lot of therapy and a lot of support. That's what the Family Support Center does. So again, I'm investing in early learning because it means later earning, right? So I'm going to get better earnings in the top because these kids are going to go to college. This is my early learning program. Here are some of the elements of the school and why it's successful. The pay for performance compensation program is one of my biggest highlights of this model because we pay by performance. That means teachers get evaluated on 3 cores: teaching effectiveness, professional activity, which means what do they do for themselves when they're in their school, and assessment, and test scores. If the test scores, and if they don't do anything for themselves, and the teaching doesn't look good, after 3 years, we don't renew. It used to be that teachers in New Jersey got tenure in the anniversary of the 3rd year in the school without even being evaluated. That's how usually it was. Until Governor Christie came in and he passed a law and he says now it's going to be 5 years and you have to have a portfolio. You have to now show evidence that you're a good teacher. So in many ways we love that because that goes in alignment with the pay for performance program and what lead the rules of our organization. The strong family engagement, the ongoing evaluation and assessment, and making sure that your vision is in alignment with the community. It's really, really important, right? The rigorous academic pre-K program and so forth. And this is what the pipeline looks like. You can see that right now we have this already. We're going through this pipeline. You see the Centers of Excellence in the bottom. And I fund the Centers of Excellence through Rutgers. So that's not part of that $15,000 that I told you about because I bring at least $2 to $3 million a year to fund these programs from the private sector. So I do a lot of that. I'm trying to set up right now stability and a succession plan for those programs. So the birth to 16 investment and innovations, we're very highly innovative in what we're doing. We call this points of pride within our buildings. You go to any of our buildings, you're going to see that we have a chef that cooks for our children. We have families that are very engaged in the wellness program because a lot of my kids were either overweight. Most of my families, where they eat once a day is in McDonald's, okay? Most of my families. Most of these children in the weekend, they have maybe 1 meal a day. The rest are lining up in the homeless shelters to pick up a meal. So Camden is a food desert. There's not a supermarket and there's no what we call YMCA now open. They closed it. We don't have a library. Close. So you can imagine what do the children do, right, after 3 o'clock. So the pregnancy rates were very high when I started. They have come down a little, but we still got challenges in the city. And, we have to go outside to Cherry Hill to buy food, right? So, or to South Camden, which is right almost in Pennsauken. I'm sorry, not Pennsauken, Lindenwold, to try to, in that area, right, to try to get food, which is not really good because usually I always say we get always the ghetto type. You get the ghetto Princeton Review. You get the ghetto supermarket. You go to a CVS in my Voorhees town, and my God, it's so clean and beautiful. Everything is lined up. You go to CVS in Camden, you better run. Everything is destroyed. It smells. Nobody knows nothing. Homeless are hanging around. It's just horrible. You see the inequalities. You want to talk about poverty? You need to come see this. The inequalities. You go to any Camden school today, there's no one white child in that schools. Talk about segregation. Major discussions are going on right now around the country on this topic. Brooklyn and Chicago and New York has the biggest challenges because they're trying to now force families to merge together. Brooklyn is a big case study that I'm watching. And I'm saying, well, why should we have to force families to live where they don't want to live, right? We should be building capacity to build better neighborhoods in our community so that we can have better housing where everybody can come and live together. But, we have more segregation in 2016 than we had in the 1960s when I was a child. It's horrible. Now, look at the numbers, guys. And, my kids, I had to train my kids how to merge into white America Rutgers. Oh, let me give you the example. Let's talk about Brown. I have a child who gets into Brown. From North Camden, a little girl so tiny, 4.0, brilliant, gets into Brown University with a $60,000 scholarship. She arrives at Brown, and they give her a roommate who happened to play tennis, who her parents were multimillionaires. I don't know what happened, but let me tell you, she walked out, and she got on the phone, and she said if we didn't come pick her up, she was walking from Brown all the way back to Camden because she was not staying at this place. I was devastated that the university did not do a more cohesive program, right, to merge her. to merge her into this system. They didn't even know. They assumed that they could be together. The girl said some horrible stuff to her. She didn't want her in the room. And she was so hurt that, let me tell you, no matter even counseling what we said, she said, no, come get me or I'm walking. Her father had to go get her. We had the priest involved. We had counselors. We have other students there. The president of the student council wanted her to stay. She left. And she came to see me. And she said, Dr. Santiago, I'm going to Drexel. Drexel? You got into Rutgers. She says, no. I went to Drexel, and they have a lot of Black and Latino kids that look like me, and I'm gonna survive there. I said, you are an excellent student with 4.0. You belong in Brown. You need to stay in Brown and show Brown that you could do it. She says, Dr. Santiago, you are offering me an SL 500. I'm taking a Ford. I said, really? I say, that's a great analogy, because that's really what, in my opinion, Drexel is, a Ford. Because Brown is an SL 500. She already knew the difference. Look how bright she is. She says, well, let me experience the Ford, because I had never seen even SL 500. I don't know what living in an SL 500 is like. I know what maybe living in less than a Ford is. I said, okay, you go to the Ford and come see me when you're ready. I said, but I'm taking the $60,000 scholarship. I'm not giving it to Drexel because the money came from us. She says, okay. I got financial aid. I could do it. She was pissed at me. At the end of the year, guess who called me? She said, Doc, you're going to love this. I'm going back, and I'm driving the SL 500. I said, what? She says, well, I don't have an SL 500, but guess what? They're taking me back, and I'm going back to Brown. I'm going to show these people that I can do it, because this Mickey Mouse school, you're absolutely right, this is a Ford. And so she went back to Brown, and she graduated. And, she told me the biggest lesson. She said, I'm coming every summer back here, Dr. Santiago, and you are going to let me talk to college access, because we're going to prepare the kids to go into Ivy League schools. I know what it is to survive in an Ivy League school. So she became the first one, right? And after that, of course, we had the University of Penn. We have the students now at Princeton, Cornell, and we're going to have the first Harvard this year. So she started a whole program, and I'm constantly learning from the children and from these experiences about poverty, because we in the mainstream society don't know what it is. We don't understand it. We cannot even relate to that because it's so distant. The achievement gaps are so big, right? We don't even have an idea even how to fix it in this country, right? So I'm telling you that because you are going to be the next people, right, to do that. So you can see here the Health Wellness, the Early Learning Research Academy, the Fabrication Lab. We have a whole Fab Lab. You know what the Fab Lab is, right? It's where you make all kinds of innovations with STEM and STEAM, from building a filter. Camden has water problems. My children had just come up with an idea of a filter. And we met with the American Water Company, and they're going to test it, and we're going to run it because Camden has particles in the water. And so American Water is moving into Camden, and they said, we want to partner with you. And we want to be able to get that filter, what we can fix the problem in Camden. So that is beautiful, right? When you have children doing those kinds of things. We have a Parents Academy that is very powerful, this College Center that I talked to you about, and the Legal Enrichment Center from the law school, okay? 1,705 students, birth through 12, right? You can see the different schools there and the early learning. And you can see where we are at, right, in terms of the children, how they get impacted in the educational pipeline, the 5-year enrollment, what it looks like for us in 5 years, the factors of the model. Student factor is critical, the teacher development factor, right, the pieces that work well. The organizational factors. We cannot do this with strong organizational skills, right? Making sure that you have an entrepreneurial governance. I still engage in the board. Rutgers gives me time for me to lead this enterprise. So I've been growing it and building it and growing it and building. You're going to see the impact in a few minutes. Again, we do every summer this family engagement. We have the chef cooking outside. And why a chef? Because I thought that it was really important, not besides because this guy fell in love with me and now is my partner. I want to disclose, because I always like to disclose. Dr. Santiago was highlighting this chef, but she never said that was her partner. Well, he is, okay? I met him in Princeton. He actually was working at Mediterra, and he was one of the owners there. And let me tell you, he left the whole industry, because once you meet me, you fall in love with me, you got to come with me. okay? That's it. So I have it in Camden. Can you imagine an Italian man from Italy with all this talent and all this class? I have him involved cooking for my children. Actually, the company that he works for is called Mets, very healthy food. And I engage him in a whole process of really transforming eating for my children and the whole family and the whole neighborhood. So look at all the great things we're doing. And this is some of the components of the parent engagement program, so you can see how we make decisions with parents. Parents have 5 seats in the Board of Governors, and they're very powerful. And they run a whole parent council, okay? And you can see some of the pieces that we provide for them, the training, the participation in school. We sign a contract with parents to allow them to be true partners, because if you don't hold parents accountable, they won't come. You know, you have to say to parents, we're going to feed the kids, we're going to teach them, we're going to give them a good quality school, but here's your job. You got to dress them, clean them, love them, help them with homework, and bring them here. That's all you have to do. We will do the rest. And that's the beauty of this partnership, right? So what is the impact? At the end of the day, everybody asks me this question. What is the impact of your work, Dawson Santiago? Here's the impact. 2015 is missing, but it was 100% too. And this year, we got half, all the seniors, 120 seniors in that class are already admitted in more than 3 or 5 colleges, and it's not even March. Most kids, the average number is 50 schools per kid. They are all compete to see who's going to get in where, right? Isn't it incredible? From where we came from, that's a long way. And last night, Channel 6 had us in the news. I knew that was going to happen, but I was so happy when I saw it alive. We have a kid from Camden. His name is Donovan. And Donovan scored the highest in basketball, the highest number of shooting. So he's like the number 1 in the country. So they used to call him a ghost. Now the news say, well, he's no longer a ghost because everybody is recruiting Donovan. But not because he's a good basketball player, because we're not a sports school. We're a small school. We have basketball. But because he has 3.9% average GPA, and then he's an excellent basketball player. So Penn already admitted him. And so everybody's looking for him. So it was in the news last night, and the whole story was about Donovan because he's from Camden, and he comes from a very poor family, but he's such a good player. I don't know, this if he goes into the NBA, you know, he has to go there, and then he has to come back and pay all my bills because I don't know, you know. So we have transformed Cooper Street. Literally, the blocks in the street. This used to be a homeless street. In the 90s, I would walk, and you probably can relate to it. I would try to come in. Actually, you literally said to Rick, if you go to Camden, you should really take Federal. That's what he told me. Because if you really try to get into Cooper Street, it's very dangerous. Back in the 90s, there were tons of homeless in Cooper Street. As you made a left into Cooper Street, right there, right in my playground that I'm going to tell you in a few minutes, there was homeless living, okay? So it was so bad that they will attack you a lot of times, so they will throw eggs in your car. So most people avoid Cooper Street. That's how bad it was. And I have pictures in another presentation, but I was not able to put it in this for you because I wanted to give you the best that I could. Those trees were from the Tree Foundation, okay? They were donated, and the blocks were donated by the Cooper Ferry Development Corporation and the Waterfront, who I partnered with to do that. This is the first building that I told you. Remember the diocese? This building had trees growing out of those windows. And this playground that you see here, that was Tent City, where the homeless lived. Okay, remember when I make the left into Cooper Street? That's what it was there. Underground, tons of tanks from Greyhound, who at one point used to have a Greyhound station there in the 1930s. So I spent 7 years fighting Greyhound to clean out the tanks so I could build this playground. And then, of course, the building now, that building, the value of this building is $10 million. What did it cost me? 100,000. Guys, you know, it's just incredible, right? How we turned this beautiful building, which is a 1925 building, is one of the most beautiful buildings that was totally abandoned. This second building, actually, is a block from there. This building is our regular high school, which is an academy in social sciences that we have. All the kids that want to go there from 7 to 12. And this building was in a parking lot that Rutgers owned. And Rutgers gave me the parking lot and gave me a guarantee to borrow $8 million to build this building for the first high school. I had a wonderful provost who loved me and loved this work, Roger Dennis, who was a visionary and an urbanist, and he supported me a lot on this project. Of course, right across from there, there's the Campbell Soup original house of the Campbell, 1826. The Campbell family, originally, the Donovans, they lived there. And so this castle was totally abandoned. It had the best the fireplaces inside, but everything else was in wood. When I bought it, it was going for like $2 million. The lady who owned it was a Chinese lady from New York, and I made a phone call. And I said to her, we need it for a school. I don't have $2 million. I want to buy the whole block. Notice I bought the whole block. And, I can buy it for $250,000. That's all I had. She said I was crazy, hung up. The next day, the lawyer called me and gave me the $250,000. So I just have to make an offer. I learned that, I don't know from where, but negotiating in life, you learn these things. And so, you know what, for less than $800,000, I got the whole block, and we were able to build a whole castle, beautiful inside for all my preschoolers. 300 preschoolers are there, and my first 10 high school is that building right next door to it, okay? This is the Early Learning Research Academy. This is right next to the law school at Rutgers, all in Cooper Street. And this is the $7 million from the Knight Foundation. All my babies that you saw are here. My office is right there in the 3rd floor. So the 2nd floor and the 1st floor is packed with babies. So I have the best job. When I come to work, I literally walk the floors because I need to feel that what I'm doing here every day with all the obstacles and challenges of life, that the most important thing for me is always about those kids. And I need to hear, good morning, Martina, good morning. I love that every morning. It makes my day. But this was a partnership with the Knight Foundation, $7 million. Knight really, and the Knight Foundation has been very, very generous because they have given me a lot of money for programs. And then I got an endowment from this Morgan family who read about my work. And there was this guy who called and said, wanted to give me $100,000. I had to call the Rutgers Foundation right away because, we don't want no drug money. I said to my staff, do not say yes. Let's get them to check who it is. $100,000. It was legitimate from this Morgan Foundation. I'm giving you all the clues. If you want to go look for money, now you know who these people are, Morgan, Knight. But the guy, Mr. Morgan, had died, and he left all this money. They only gave me $100,000, and I took it to buy Pampers, to buy milk for those babies, to set up the cribs. We have observation classrooms in here, the best model classrooms in here. So, and those of you who want to come see it and do internships, I'd love to have you there because we have a partnership with the Rutgers Early Learning Program, and the PhD program is producing all my teachers there. So the beauty is that the following summer, they called me, they said, Dr. Santiago, we want to have our board meeting in your 3rd floor. I said, my 3rd floor? I can only take 10 people in that conference room. Oh, we only have 3 people in our board. Oh, Morgan Foundation, with all that money, 3 people. It was all family. They came, and they asked me to do a presentation, and they asked me to tell them they said, what do you need? I already was prepared to ask for a $3 million endowment to set up to protect this in perpetuity. Endowments is something I learned that are critical. Remember, I have one for the children at $2 million, okay? That gives scholarship. The revenue of that gives me maybe $150,000 for scholarships. I only give out 80 a year, 80,000 of that revenue. This one is $3 million, and it's giving me like 100 plus. So whatever money I get from that endowment, I use to run the 0 to 3 because there's no money for 0 to 3. So I'm telling you how I do these things. Endowments produce revenue. I learned that from looking at my 401ks when I was at Rutgers. I said, oh my God, I'm ready to retire. I was ready to retire probably at 50 because I knew I could, but I'm never going to retire. So I figure, you know what, if your money can grow that well, and Rutgers invested so well in me because I was so young, which is so important for you to do. Learn to find a job that matches your 401k so you can have investments, right? So by the time you retire, you're going to be well taken care of because, that money's going to be there, right? And you protect it well. So I learned that really from Rutgers. It's all the experiences all about money because I never took a fundraising course, ever. I never been to a fundraising course. I can teach one, but it's all about experiences in life. Now, my last building, you see that 12-floor building, the big one? It used to call the Wilson Building. In the 1930s, Mr. Wilson was an industrialist who lived in the city, and he came here because all the work that was happening in Camden. And he built this building for offices. And then he left in the 1950s, and the building was abandoned ever since. An industrialist came in and bought it in the year 2010, tried to renovate it, but he ran into trouble, invested $6 million getting asbestos out, fixing it. He could not get anybody to rent it, not even for offices. So he ran into trouble, and he took a loss and gave it back to Beneficial Bank. And I've been watching this building, you know me, right? I'm already watching the whole street because I want to buy the street to have an educational corridor for the miracle that I'm building. So I have, again, social capital. I have no money, but I knew somebody who knew the president of Beneficial. He introduced us. They donated that building. We went to EDA, borrowed $10 million through bonds at 4% interest, and we were able to fix the whole building inside. You have to come see it. From a fitness center, you see those big windows? That's a dance floor for ballet, for salsa, for merengue, because, you know, and for soul music. And then we have, half of that is a fitness center with machines and all that, because I wanted my kids to have a fitness center. They kept saying, you know, back to Santiago, the girls, we want to have like a fitness center, because I do focus groups with the kids all the time about what they want. So this was all designed by them. We want a dance room. They have ballet. They have salsa. They have salsa classes now, like once a week. And the parents have Zumba. Isn't it great? So now that second floor is packed. The first floor is the best cafeteria, a college cafeteria. I built a college cafeteria, literally. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. And, of course, in the third floor is the Fab Lab, where the kids produce all the innovations that I talked to you about. And then from 4 to 8 is classrooms. The 9th floor is college access. The 10th floor is a whole health and wellness center for all the families. We own our own license. We have our own medical center right now. We do it through third-party reimbursements. So we really have a major enterprise. And, of course, the 11th floor is administration. And that 12th floor, I rent it for professional development, quinceañeros, all the parties that parents want to have. We do it over there because I believe, now the community has taught me so much about what they want. And so we allow now, you know, of course we have a parent center in the health and wellness, half is parent center and health and wellness, but that 12th floor is for rental. The antennas in the top is revenue. When I got the building, I got it with revenue. It came with $500,000 in revenue from the antennas and, of course, a Mac machine on the first floor. Isn't that nice? So, you know, God is good to those that give. He knows how to recompensate. And so, you know, when I started all this, I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in anything, right? Quite frankly, I have grown. I have learned so much. I've become spiritual. I've become a better person. And not that I was a bad person, but I had a purpose. I knew that there was a reason why I had to do this work as a scholar. But most importantly, I knew that I wanted to transform lives and make a difference with my research and my work. Now, out of all of this, there's a book called The Miracle on Cooper Street, which I had a box to bring. But, you know, I hate carrying stuff. That's one thing about me. You know, you have to help me. At this age, I said, I can't carry this box. And she has a back problem. So we said, if you want it, we will send you a box and you can order it with me. You can also go online and get them. But I can sell them cheaper if you want them. So we see schools as nexus for community development. This is a theory of action, which I'm going to give you copies of this presentation. This is our logic model. What are the lessons of the work, right? We will never eradicate poverty without quality education. That's a lesson for all children that we learn, right? Education counts because it helps eradicate poverty and hunger, right? And education gives people the knowledge and the skills they need to live better lives. This is the Fab Lab. This is where the kids work and they do project-based learning. It boosts productivity and open doors for jobs and credits, right? And we know these kids are all in dual enrollment courses at Rutgers right now in 11th and 12th grade. They graduate, all of them, with 12 to 15 credits of college work. So poverty is one of the main reasons why children are left out of education. So it's important for us to create opportunities for them. This comprehensive approach, right, in terms of bringing everyone together has created for us an incredible broader community, but instead of doing piecemeal work and uncoordinated efforts, we created a comprehensive approach. Okay, that's really critical if you want to do interventions. Bring a comprehensive approach. Bringing all the diverse partners instead of single sector initiatives was another lesson. Focusing geographically in Cooper Street, defined area, instead of being too broad in scope. I had a vision, and I stood with that vision for Cooper Street. A governance structure that includes a lead organization to drive the effort and a leaders-less coalition, meaning that you form an organization, a 501c3, that now has the possibility to do many things, because the school doesn't have to be a 501c3, but I created that is now led by the teachers and the people and the leaders there in that community. An active engagement by residents, right? and cross-fertilization between students and faculty, and engaging research, service learning, and community development. I told you this is a faculty member here reading to my kids. We get them all the time to read. Every day we got a faculty or staff person from the university reading to our children. We have also a Jumpstart program, which is about 1,000 Jumpstart students that engage in Jumpstart in the last 3 years. An asset-based approach that builds from system resources and strength rather than considering communities as deficits to be remediated, and flexible and non-categorical funding from diverse sources instead of restrictive funds. So I really go for that non-categorical funding from different sectors, the private sector, individual money, right? I don't want to just get government money and become dependent on that. That's it. That's the end. Okay? Oh. Thank you.
So we have about 15 minutes for questions.
Okay, very good. I was trying to rush, and sorry, but yes.
I'm amazed at what you've been able to do, and you make me proud to be affiliated with Rutgers.
Oh.
And I wonder if you can export this model.
Oh, absolutely.
To other states. Do people come to you to ask?
Oh, yes. Let me tell you 3 places where I'm doing work already. I went to La Favelas in Brazil, and I actually serve as a lead person already working with the School of Business there to develop a community school in Favelas. That school is doing phenomenal. They got all my model, so they were able to adopt it, and we're working with them. We're doing an exchange program. Also, West Africa, Accra. Brought me 3 years ago to work with the Department of Education to do a project there. I'm doing work with Puerto Rico. As vast as Puerto Rico is, oh my God, we have to change the law in Puerto Rico if we want to transform the educational system. So I'm really doing a lot of work there now, trying to bring our model. And of course, you know, there are other states which we've done a lot of consultant work in designing the model. But I want to upscale it. That's really where I want to go. Back there.
I see that I'm very impressed by what you've done, and I see that you're trying to do collaborative work. The one set of organizations who don't seem to have any interest in collaborating with are unions. Do you think unions are inimical to your project? Is they're educable, irrelevant?
No, I can tell you they're very relevant because the union is one of the most powerful. The teachers' union is one of the most powerful organizations right now in the nation and in the state. And so, you know what? I really started. I come from labor, so I'm going to undisclose. My father and I were always labor people, and my whole family. But one thing that really bothered me the most when I was doing this project was to see how NJA advocated so much against this project, not because they were against charter schools, just because they never understood it and they were afraid of change. And so in many ways, you know, we were union free for 8 years. But when you're in these enterprises, you're always going to have people that are going to come in to try to organize your teachers because you're trying to change. Change. People are afraid of change because they don't know how to deal with change. And usually people are afraid of change when they are losing something, okay? And so what they felt, the union felt that they were losing was what? You know, they were losing the teachers that were now able to show that you can do this without unions. You don't need to pay that fee. So they organized me. I lost the election, but let me tell you what happened. I will not give up and I to this day will not give up. As long as I'm involved in this movement, I will not give up parent piece. I will not give up pay for performance, longer day, longer year, extended program that I have. The union wanted all that out. And so when they came to negotiate, they kept me prisoner for 3 years. Okay? You know what? But I had an option. I went back to the Department of Education and said, if I cannot get a contract that represents the interests of this model, we will actually close the school and reorganize. So I will fire everybody. And you have to have, as a leader, you have to have what I call the ability to make the tough decisions. That was a tough decision. And it was tough for me to walk out of that meeting and say, and I was ready to fire everybody. And guess what? The teachers followed me out of that meeting. And they said, Dr. Santiago, we want to negotiate with you, not with the union right now. And they're members of the bargaining unit in the local school. And they said, all we want is better salaries. Okay, you have it. But they don't have a say on my pay for performance, longer day. We negotiate for now. The union been with us now for over 15 years. But we negotiate with our local bargaining unit, and we get what we want that way. Now, I believe that every school should have a bargaining unit. It's which bargaining unit do you want to represent? I believe in representation. I think it's important. But the traditional union of the teachers, like NJA, has not been a friend of charter schools. I mean, although they're trying to organize us, they have organized us, they really still today very vocal against charter schools. And that's part of, and again, it's against the what I call, it's against change, right? Anything that is change, they're against. And part of the challenge is that we have to, for us as charters, is educating the public about the fact that alternative schools and public schools, the way they are, they don't work. They don't work. I mean, they don't work for urban America. They don't work for suburbia. But I'm interested in saving urban kids. Why? Because I believe that that's where the inequalities are, and that's where my job. This is my contribution, right? I cannot take everything else, but the inequalities are so big that we have room here for growth. And I think that as we continue this debate, definitely the unions have to be part of the solution. We can't ignore them. Neither can we disengage. We have to continue the dialogue, because I believe in dialogue and collaboration. And even though they might not be on the table, the education has to continue so that we can continue to create change, right? Because you can't just be an active participant. You got to be part of the solution. Otherwise, you're part of the problem. That's the way I see it. Let me have the students. Yes. Students over here. Yes.
Dr. Bonilla, we actually have a lot in common. I'm the daughter of two Dominican immigrants, and I got my BA from Rowan, and I'm currently earning my master's here at Rutgers. So
great.
Lots of great similarities. In that sense, not necessarily somewhat related to what she just asked. How do you see kind of taking this model and incorporating into the public school system? How do we make policy support an innovative model for public schools?
Right. I think one good thing that is happening is that the Department of Education has now begun to leverage that. They're saying, we want to do innovative, we're voting the best innovative schools. How do we get them to work with the traditional public schools? Remember, we're still a public school. We get in our kids through a lottery. We're part of a universal enrollment. So they were the same kids in the city. There's not like we're picking the better kids. I mean, there's no such thing as better kids in Camden. All the kids come from the same income level, same poverty, same challenges, single moms. I have homeless kids. I mean, I have kids that our parents are incarcerated. I have kids that have been in UV or they're taking courses in UV and coming back. So I have all of that. So I think part of what we really need to do is figure out ways, and we're doing that now with the Camden school system, but it took a while. You can collaborate with people who want to collaborate. When you have a model that doesn't work, when you have all these schools that are not in need of improvement, right? And you want to say, we want to help, it's very difficult because some people benefit. One of the things I noticed and learned tremendously is that there's so much inequality, but there are people who benefit from that inequality. Okay, you have Newark, you have that in Newark, you have that in Trenton, you have that in Camden, and that inequality is supported by politicians that are in power, or for why did this get so bad? I mean, the state knows about it, the local politicians, and you have board of educations that are in charge. And when you ask them how to read a budget, they just cannot even read a budget. Actually, they're more interested in listening to a story than really interested in the real policies about changing kids' lives. So it was very difficult for us at one point. I mean, there was a time where we were their enemy. Okay, but guess what? We deploy them. What I learned is that you just keep going with what you're doing, and at the end of the day, you prove your case. The parents love you. The kids are graduating. You're showing results. I had to show impact before they could talk to me. They didn't believe. They thought we were going to fail because everything had failed in that town. So you have to show success, and then you can begin to collaborate. And then the state came in and took over the schools because guess what? They only needed improvement, and we were deploying them. They only have a few schools. So now we could work together. I see the potential to do that. But, it's a major struggle between, it's all this is, remember what I said, it's about change. And traditional public schools don't want to change, particularly in the urban districts. You have teachers that are teaching very minimal. The results are abysmal. The leadership is horrible. But the pay is wonderful. There's a lot of people making a lot of money on the back of poor people. Okay? We'll better wake up. When you look at the salaries of some of the superintendent's office and the staff there and the teachers, they're making great money. Why would they want to bother? Nobody's asking for accountability. The issue here is that those are our kids that have been left behind. And the community and the parents have to worry about it. Because if the state doesn't do anything, that's how you create change. You got to begin to ask the tough questions about spending and accountability, right? For every dollar, what do you get for $27,000? Do you know you can send a kid to Princeton Prep for $28,000 a year and get the best quality schooling? Camden gets 27, and they don't have one school to show that is not in need of improvement. What does that say about money? This is for years. Listen, this is a big, you know what an adaptive problem is? Adaptive versus technical. This is a serious adaptive system problem that has been going on for years, and we have to dismantle it. And because of the inequalities that it's causing. And of course, what white family is going to come to Camden and send their kids there? Would you send the kids there? No, hell no. You're not going to do that. No, until we fix it, right? Now, we chose to fix it using a charter. And then now you have Renaissance schools. Now you have, other operators that are coming in to try to help. So there will be change, because let me tell you what happens. When someone else is working against you, eventually there'll be change. They'll dismantle it. But you got to keep working on it. You can't just give up. Yes. One more question. Yes, over here.
Thank you for the question, first of all. My question is regarding college retention. So what do the college retention numbers look like?
Great. Very good question.
Because I know, for me, I come from a similar background that a lot of your kids come from. So for me, I find it very difficult to stay in school because of the baggage that, I bring with me from home.
Right.
So how many of your students, from the charter school are able to stay in school?
What we have right now, 85% retention, okay? But the kids are taking, some of them, the brightest that I jumped forward, we've been able to finish in 4 years. Some are taking 5 years. Some of them are in the community colleges and transferring it. I have a full-time person in the CLC, the Center for Community Leadership, full-time. His job is to support kids that are going to Rutgers, right? He's full-time because he's in the scholarship. And then I have another kid who's supporting through what we call a private scholarship, supporting other kids. So, getting them together as an alumni, bringing them together, supporting, sending them to the right centers, getting transcripts every semester, maintaining the GPA. So working with that kind of support system, that's what we're doing. So we can maintain that college retention, because that's critical. If they don't graduate, you got nothing. But we are getting them to graduate, and they're doing phenomenal. I have 3 right now at Rutgers Law School that are doing very well. I have one working for Morgan Stanley. I have another working for AT&T now in Washington. So, and some of them in TD Bank doing, this is after master's degree. So I am very happy with the results. I know that we prove that it can be done. And we know that the kids can do it only if you provide them with the support that they need. Now, remember Donovan, who's a preschooler, who now is, graduating. I mean, all my preschoolers are graduating. That means they don't know anything else. They only know the LEAP system, right? And we provide them with a wonderful quality schooling. So that baggage and all the problems that you're talking about, we handle it. We take it. We got people like Karid and others that are there to listen to those issues, to work it out, to make sure that you are okay mentally, physically, so that you can be, while you're with us in that because we have gated community in our schools, because we don't want drugs to come in or people to, my kids used to get beat up because they wear uniforms to come to school. You know what that is? They were coming to school, they stole their computers, they beat them up. So I decided to create gates, right, so my kids could be safe while they're in school, because that was a very important thing for them. So we handle all of that. And we say at night, when they go home, that's what we're working with the parents. You got to support your child. You got to make sure you're there. You cannot let him out at night, or, because everything happened bad in Camden at night, right? Or after 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So it's important that we work with our community, and then also opening the schools at night so the parents are there, the kids can stay late, they can have basketball, they can have ballet. All of that, it took me time to build it, but finally we got it. And so they can feel that they're part of a community and they don't have to feel as bad, so that the baggage is less, right? Because we all got baggage, even suburbia kids got baggage, right? Yes. So this one more. My girl over here had a question.
Do you have, or have you thought about starting programs to help other visionary leaders like yourself who wants to help charter, like help urban communities grow better educational systems?
That's a wonderful idea. You know me, I'm an entrepreneur. I think I have to give you credit. If I do and you hear that I'm doing that, I'm going to come looking for you. Wonderful idea. I think I'm going to end with that because that will be a really good enterprise. So let's talk about how do we collaborate with the faculty here to do an institute on school leadership for innovation, because we want to really be innovative. We don't want to be more of the same. I love that idea. All right, thank you.
So please join me in thanking Dr. Santiago.